Hi there. I want to talk about today's guest. Our guest is an award winning spiritual thought leader. And before she launched her business, Michall J. Medina had trained in over 7 different healing modalities. She was in search of a cure for her anxiety. It came on fast. As a former electrical engineer, she brought her analytical skills to the world of healing and spirituality and developed a groundbreaking method of resolving the core root of any struggle and shifting it into expansion and freedom. I know you are going to be thrilled by today's discussion. My mission to end the silence, the stigma, and the shame about suicide loss, ideation, and mental health. Please, won't you join me?
Suicide Zen Forgiveness, the pod that shares the stories of those affected by suicide. Lost a loved one? Attempted it yourself? Come listen in with your host, Elaine Lindsay. Please note, the Suicide Zen Forgiveness podcast is for education only. Some of this subject matter could be triggering. For those of you that are either grieving or having mental health problems, please call your local suicide hotline or mental health office if you need immediate help. And now, here's your host, Elaine Lindsay.
I am really excited to bring someone to you today who has, as you heard, such an exciting change in careers. I think this is going to be a really eye-opening talk, and I so love that. So here we go. My guest today is Michall J. Medina. Hello there.
Hi.
I'm so happy to have you join us.
I'm so excited. Thanks for having me.
I think it's really interesting. And the first time you and I spoke, I have friends, female friends, who are engineers. And you specifically were electrical engineer, which the more I thought about it, the more I realized that, yes, all those analytical skills and all of the pieces you brought to a very technical arena, you are now getting to super showcase within the bounds of healing and spirituality, which just blows my mind. As this is Suicide Zen Forgiveness, we of course are going to let Michal give us her story. And with that in mind, I'm going to hand the mic over to you.
Okay. Thanks, Celine. So, my story, I guess it starts when I started experiencing social anxiety out of nowhere. One day, I was just like the social butterfly, always got along well with people, made friends. And then I visited my old college hometown, and an old friend ran up to me. She's, "Hey, how's it going?" And I didn't know why this happened, but I just froze and my body tensed up, my mind went blank, my heart was racing, and I had no idea why this was happening. It had never happened before. And so that was really the start of the downward spiral in my life, because I was like, why is this happening? How can I fix this? And it just sent me into a really dark mental space. And I just felt imprisoned. I felt like I couldn't be me anymore. I felt what brought me life was connecting with other people and getting that positive feedback of me being friendly and people liking me. And so it was feeding my identity and sense of self-worth. And when all of that crumbled and I just couldn't be myself anymore, and that started a deep suicidal depression. So I was working as an electrical engineer, and my boss was actually in a different office on the other side of Texas. So I didn't really have to come into work because he wasn't even there. And so we had the option of working from home. So I just started working from home because I didn't even want to leave my house. I started being afraid of, if I leave my house, I'm going to run into someone I know, and then I'm going to freeze up, and then I'm going to look awkward. And then I would just see like people's the way they would look at me, because obviously I'm being extremely awkward, and I would just, like, in my mind, see their eyes just, like, looking at me concerningly, and it was just, like, this whole, like, cycle of trauma, just, like, feeling traumatized by the excruciatingly difficult social experiences. And
Well, and
so
not, yeah, I'm just going to stop you for 1 second. And
yeah,
how old were you when this started?
it was 2016, and so I was, let's see, I'm almost 32 now. Can you do the mental math? Because I can't.
Yeah, 8 years ago. Um,
Okay, great. Yeah.
I'm having a
I'm
good day.
I'm an engineer, can work the stuff and calculator, but mental math has never been my thing. So, yeah, so it was 8 years ago that you said. So I was 26. No, 24.
24.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
so 24, I had been working as an engineer for 3 years at that point, and pretty much I just started working from home, but I was also just distraught by my life, feeling like it was in shambles, and so I would wake up and just, like, sob and cry in bed all day until 5 PM. Like, I was just like, you're just like, "Oh, like, life," and just crying and crying, and 5 PM, finally, I'd roll out of bed and turn on my computer, do my engineering work till midnight, and then same thing next day, and just doing that over and over again. I was just miserable. So that kinda went on for 6 months, and then after the 6-month point, I was talking to my sister. My sister had gone through anxiety and depression for a large majority of her life, and she was already doing the medication thing and CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. So
Yeah.
she was suggesting medication, and I had never tried medication before, but in my mind, I was just like, "If this is gonna fix this, I'm down." And so I started on the medication, and I started going to cognitive behavioral therapy, and I realized, okay, so I went to 3 or 4 sessions of CBT, and I realized that they were teaching me how to cope with the anxiety when it comes up, and I was just like, "You know what? I'm not gonna accept the fact or the idea that I have to live with this for the rest of my life and just learn to cope with it." Like, I could cope with it, but if there's something that happened in my brain that started this, there has to be some way to get to the bottom of it and figure out how to undo it, because I wasn't like this all my life. So I
There's
was
the
just like,
engineer.
yes. Yeah. So I was like, "Okay, there has to be a better way." And also, I'm not sure if it was the medication itself or it was the idea of the thought that I'm so broken that I need medication, but that started the suicidal ideation when I got on the medication. So I was like, "I'm getting off of this really fast. I don't want something controlling my brain chemistry. I knew that I wasn't suicidal before this, so I'm gonna get off this very quickly." And then I started looking for alternative forms of therapy. At first, I went to trauma therapy, and the therapist had me talk about, I guess I left a part out, which was, I never know for sure if this is what caused the social anxiety, but I did have an experience of a group of friends rejecting me. And so, from if I'm drawing conclusions, it I think what it created in my brain is a sense of safety, not being safe, because at any moment a friend could reject me, or a group of friends could group gang up on me and call me names. And so I think that's what flipped the thing in my brain, was like, I'm no longer safe. Social situations aren't safe. Yeah, and so then the trauma therapy had me talking about the experience with the friends, and I'm just like, there has to be a better way. I feel like there's some way to get deeper and undo whatever happened in my brain, and talking about it is not getting me there. And so I got into hypnosis. So I started seeing a hypnotherapist, and he would have me lay down and relax, and he would tell me, whenever you see people, you're relaxed, you're confident, you feel great. And that did work for a little bit. So I think I went to 3 or 4 sessions. And the next time I was in a social situation, I was like, oh, I'm actually not feeling anxious. Like, I'm actually relaxed. And so I was like, great, I'm fixed. But then a few days later, the anxiety would start back up, and so I was like, "Ah, so this isn't a permanent solution. I'm gonna have to keep going to hypnotherapy sessions for the rest of my life." So, I was like, "I don't wanna live that way either. I just wanna be free. I wanna be back to how I was before." And I went to a festival in Portugal. It's called Boom Festival. And like many music festivals, they have like a healing and Zen garden kind of area where they do workshops and yoga and meditation. And so every evening there was this woman, she would do a group healing session. And obviously, I'm still battling with social anxiety, so I'm just like, "Yes, anything that can help me, I'm looking for solutions." And
Absolutely.
I would go to these group healing sessions, and I couldn't even explain, like, how she was doing what she was doing, but she would guide us to connect to her heart center, and she did this thing called a heart flash, which is where you picture a camera flash flashing through your heart center. So it's, in essence, like opening your heart center. And she would have a theme, "Okay, we're gonna focus on this particular theme." So she's, "Okay, everyone bring up something that's been bothering you along that theme or a memory or something." And then she'd be like, "Okay, 1, 2, 3, heart flash." And we would all like imagine the camera flash in our heart center. And then all of the sudden, I'm like sitting in this group, like cross-legged, sitting on the ground, and we're doing this heart flash. And I feel all these sensations in my body. And I feel like things like shifting in like my head and even up here, like in my energy field. And I wasn't well versed with energy or energy healing. And so I was just like, what is she doing? Like she's standing up there and she's doing what exactly? And like, how is it causing me to feel this? So I was
I
like,
can
"What?"
just imagine your engineer brain
Yeah.
trying to make some cohesive sense out of her over there and you feeling all these things. Because everybody who goes through this type of healing and works with energy and goes into meditation, we all feel those kinds of things. But
Mhm.
depending on your history and your career and all
Yeah.
the things you're into, we all take it in differently. It's really
Mhm.
interesting to think about what it must have been for your engineer brain to try and digest all of this. It's magic.
Yeah. Yeah. And I grew up in Christianity and then later did a full Orthodox conversion to Judaism, and at that point, I was still in, like, the religious Jewish mindset, and so so I had never heard of energy healing before, I just wasn't in that world yet. And what I did, after the festival, I came back home and I was just like, "Okay, I need to learn whatever this woman is doing because she's doing something, but I don't know what she's doing." And so I ended up going to, I think it was France, and I flew over to where she was hosting a training program to teach us how to do what she's doing. And actually, she taught us this meditative thing where we would close our eyes and meditate and imagine that we're connecting to the source of all that is, God, source of all creation. And then from there, asking for what we want to shift. And I was like, oh, this is prayer.
Yes.
Prayer. I was like, "Wow, I never imagined, like, through this, like, prayer, like, intentionally connecting to the source of all that is, to God,
So
and
good.
you can just ask for something and then it happens." It was the most, wow, astounding thing, and so it was basically like a meditative, intentional form of prayer and not asking in a way of, "Poor me, I don't deserve this, please give this to me." It's we're connecting with the source of all that is, and we're, like, asking/commanding because we believe and know that the shift is going to happen. So we're, like, co-creating with God, and so I was like, "I can't believe I knew how to do this the whole time I've been praying."
Yeah.
So that was crazy. So yeah, so basically over the next several years, I would do these certification programs, learning these different energy healing modalities. So it's not like I learned the energy healing modality and then all of a sudden, like, my social anxiety was gone. Like, it definitely was a period of development over several years of learning different healing modalities, doing them on myself, and I would feel more alive and stronger and more energized, but the social anxiety was still there. And so I was just like, okay, I was still searching for solutions. And I signed up to work with a mentor, and the very first session that we did together, I explained, I was like, "I've been working on this for so long, and I still feel stuck, I still feel closed, I don't know what's going on, I just wanna be myself, I wanna feel open, I wanna feel comfortable with people, I'm just so tired of feeling in pain." And he's, "Okay, you're looking at this as a problem to be solved." And I was just like, "But it is a problem to be solved." I was like, "What do you mean?" And then he guided me to connect to the part of me that was in pain, that was feeling closed, and I saw, like, a version of myself who was hurt, who was rejected by her friend, and that she just wanted to feel loved and validated and accepted, and that was the first time I switched my mindset around if I'm experiencing something I don't within myself, to go from treating it as a problem to be solved to actually switching and seeing it as a part of me that just needs love and validation, and yeah, and just needs to feel safe. And yeah, and so that was the first time that I actually started to relate to myself in a different way, and that's when things started to shift, because I realized, and it's actually a really common thing, is people get themselves into a healing trap, which is what I was in before, and I'm just like, healing, focusing on things, so you're looking within yourself at, "Okay, how can I solve this? How can I solve this?" And you're treating yourself like you're a problem or there's something wrong with you. And as long as you're treating yourself that way, you keep the problem in place. You keep the symptoms stuck because the symptoms are just a part of you that wants to be loved. So if you keep rejecting yourself, it's counterintuitive.
It's like you're giving yourself this healing project.
Yeah.
It's like never ending problems that allow you to do what you've learned. And until we get past that piece,
Yeah.
yeah.
And also, as I was learning about energy healing, I was also expanding my consciousness and learning about spirituality outside of the context of religion, and learning about how our thoughts create our reality and how our reality is a reflection of the perceptions that we have. And so if you're constantly perceiving yourself as being broken, or there's something wrong with you, or there's a problem to be solved, you're going to keep seeing that reflection back, because that's what you're creating into existence through your perception. So yeah, I all came full circle once I realized. I was like, of course.
That's such a huge aha moment.
Yes, big time, yeah. So, from there, it started productive healing, actually, because before that, it was not very productive. I was working hard on healing, but I wasn't really making shifts big time.
Right.
And so from there, I started actually being able to what I call like alchemizing parts of yourself. So there's this part of you that's wounded, and there's this part of you that feels anger, frustration, and there's different layers of wounded parts of you. And what I started to discover is actually the wound from the friends rejecting me, the wound actually ran much deeper into childhood. And it was my childhood wounds that led me to need validation from other people. And when I stopped having that validation, that's when everything collapsed in on itself and social anxiety started. But yeah, and so it's like going back to all the layers of wounding. And sometimes it's like the core foundational wound, there's so much protection around it. There's so much like layers of subconscious. Yeah, it's just so locked deep away in your subconscious, because your subconscious has figured out a way to survive and a way to cope and a way to be a certain way to protect yourself. And so it's not, oh, yes, of course, I just found my core childhood memory and it's healed, and it's like you have to slowly take down the walls and slowly realize that it's safe, and you're just navigating through life and learning how to respond differently in situations so that you can feel the safety within yourself, feel not default to old patterns of people pleasing or of fear of rejection. And so it's a slow process of really getting to the root and learning how to reparent yourself from the inside out, because a lot of people, the symptoms they're experiencing today goes back to these childhood wounds, whether they know it or not. There was a time when I thought I did have a good childhood, but there was a time where I had the blinders on and I was like, there was nothing wrong with my childhood. No, my parents loved me. And of course they did love me, but I had no idea of the effects of certain experiences and how that affected the way I chose to operate in my adult years. And I was a chronic people pleaser for a long time, and I had no idea that was a problem. It was just how I learned to cope. So, yeah.
It's interesting when you say, rightly so, about getting to that deep place where you're actually making shifts and doing the healing. Took a long time. You were doing more surface stuff, but
Mm,
I think that's the preparation you needed to shift into who you are now.
yeah.
Because all the traumas that we go through, they they can either rebuild us or they can break us. And I think it's up to us which one of those things happen. And sometimes it's a couple of years, sometimes it's decades for those of us who are slower. But
Mhm,
having those, I don't want to say waiting times, but it's almost like internship. So
mhm,
that when you do turn your gifts to others, you have more empathy, you have more understanding of the stumbling that can happen even though they're trying to heal. That makes sense?
could you explain it a little bit more?
Yeah. So I say on the surface, I always say that first responders, policemen, firemen, nurses, doctors, they need to have 48 hours as a patient or as a victim to understand, to truly be able to put themselves in that person's shoes in order to help them with no judgment. And
Mhm,
going through the little bits of healing that weren't making big shifts, but were teaching you more about the modalities and the feelings and all the little pieces that go along in order for you to get to a place where you can serve those that you serve
mhm.
empathetically.
Yeah,
You've been there. You understand that there are those stumbling blocks. You know that it's not linear. You don't just get to
yeah.
go full bore ahead. That's what I
Yes. Yeah, that's definitely yes, okay. I guess I'll continue with my story because there's a part where I end up developing my own healing
yeah.
modalities. Okay, at a certain point, I started working with another mentor, and this was around the time where I decided to start my business. So I was working as an electrical engineer in Texas when my life started crumbling. I decided I wanted to quit my engineering job, move to Israel because I was at the time very involved in the Jewish religious community, and the primary thing that was weighing me down was experiencing social anxiety. But then everything else on top of that just made it worse, such as living in a religious community where everyone is constantly talking about you and judging you or gossiping about you if you're not following strictly the religious rules. And
Oh, yeah.
so I couldn't, yeah, it's a very difficult experience to be, and I live in the neighborhood, so that's why I was, like, afraid to leave my house because what if I run into someone I know? And so just that pressure of needing to be so strictly religious or else people will gossip about me, and then working in engineering, I felt working this full-time job, I didn't have time to focus on myself and figure out how to heal, and also I was curious about these spiritual questions that I felt weren't being answered within the religion, and I didn't have time to study that either. And then on top of that, it didn't feel like engineering was what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. It didn't feel fulfilling, and so I was like, I could keep working in engineering, but with everything that's going on with me, I can't bring myself to also do something that's not fulfilling, that doesn't feel like I want to do this for the rest of my life. And it also felt like I was dedicating all my time to this job. So I was like, this isn't right. I could wait till I'm 40 and then leave, but I'm just going to leave now and figure myself out early on. So I moved to Israel because I felt like that was the only place where I could be Jewish, but not have people keep tabs on me and gossip about me. Because if I moved anywhere else in the world, there's specific Jewish communities, and people would be like, "Oh, she moved over there. Is she in touch with the rabbi there? Is she living in the community?" And I was just like so distraught with this social anxiety that I couldn't handle people criticizing me. So I was like, I need to just disappear. I need people to not be able to keep tabs on me and not gossip about me, and I need to just find myself and figure out my own path. So I lived in Israel where it's a massive country full of Jewish people. No one can really keep tabs on you. So that's where I found my freedom. So, yeah, so then I did an MBA for a year. It was like a year-long program, and that's because I was so brainwashed into the mindset of you have to have a career, you have to have your path lined out, you have to know what you're doing, you can't just be doing nothing with your life. You have to have it all figured out. So I'm like, "Okay, I'm doing an MBA. This is my cover story because I can it leaves it open-ended enough to where I could do anything with it, and it gives me a whole year to have more time to myself and a whole year to figure out what I wanted to do with my life." Yes. So I did that for a year, graduated. I started looking for jobs, but it was very much still like the conditioning of have something lined up. You graduated, you have to have a job now. You can't just not have anything. And so I was applying to all these jobs. I was trying to use my engineering background with my MBA, get into something like a product manager or something or and so I was interviewing, and I had so many interviews, but every single interview, they were just like, "Yeah, no, it's not gonna work out," and it was such a stark contrast to when I was applying for engineering jobs when I graduated with my undergrad. I had so many job offers, and so I'm like, "How is it so different now? How is it that no one wants to give me a job offer?" And then I started to realize I was, like, reflecting back during the interviews, and it's almost like they could sense my energy and see
Yeah,
that I didn't really want the job. Like, they I was saying all the right things,
but
but
like
I could
this.
sense yes, I could sense that they could sense that it just something didn't sit right. I didn't really want the job, which is the truth. And I had been living in Israel for a couple years at that point, and I made it a habit to go back and visit America every 6 months, like, twice a year, see my family because they were all still in Texas. And didn't land any job, and it was time for me to take a trip to America, so I was like, "Okay, just gonna go on my trip, and when I come back, I'll keep the job search going." That's what I thought at the time. And I go to America, had a trip planned to go to Burning Man, and that was my first time at Burning Man. And Burning Man is like this whole world away from the rest of the world. It's a pop-up city, 100,000 people, and you don't have cell service, and it's, so unlike real life, like, you wander and have adventures and go here, wherever you feel like going, make friends, and so it's just this world away from the world, and from there, just being there, it's like I could see my life from the outside looking in. I could break away from everything that I was thinking while I was in my regular life, and I could just see it from the outside perspective. And so I had made a friend, and I had told my friend about the healing journey that I had been on and training in all these healing modalities, and that I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I quit engineering. I got this crossroads. And so he was kind of trying to help me figure it out. And he was asking me, he was like, based on what you're telling me, like, why don't you heal people. You could heal people for a living. And I was just like something about that didn't sit quite right, but the words came to me and I was just like, I want to teach people how to heal themselves. And that felt right. That felt so right. I was like, yes, I don't want to hold people's hand and be their savior. I want to empower people to learn how to do what I've been able to do for myself. I want to teach people how to heal themselves. So that was really a mind-opening, like, breakthrough that I actually figured out what I wanted to do. And so, I moved back to Israel. I didn't really have an exact plan because I am still being conditioned in the traditional mindset of, like, careers and stuff. I didn't really have the idea that I could just start teaching people. I was like, "I need some sort of starting point. And then I saw a Facebook ad of how to become a coach, like a certification program to start to be an official coach, to start coaching people. And I was like, oh, like I was like, I don't know how I didn't think of this before, but I could become a certified coach and through that teach people how to heal themselves.
Here we
So I
go.
did that, started my coaching career, and then through that, like, I finished the coaching program and I started working with a mentor. So this was a mentor who would help with business, and she would also help with like energy and emotions and releasing inner blocks and stuff like that. And so if there are entrepreneurs watching this, once you start your entrepreneurial journey, there's a whole more like a whole lot of like inner work that needs to be done because it's very scary and vulnerable to put yourself out there. And you have to be so confident in yourself. And if you don't feel confident, it makes it very hard to
Oh,
be
yeah.
like, "Hey, I can help you. Hey, these are my services. Hey, let me get on the phone with someone and tell them how I can help them." It's a very scary thing if you don't feel confident within yourself. And so I was coming up against a lot of that. And at that point, I had been able to feel the social anxiety less and less in certain scenarios and circumstances where in the past it would be triggered. Now I could be in those same scenarios where it's not triggered. And I was making progress. There were still some scenarios and circumstances where it would still get triggered, so it just depends. The way the brain works is like it's certain situations or certain things will trigger the fight or flight response. So I wasn't completely free of the social anxiety, but I was freer more of the time, if that makes sense. But I, again, with my determined mindset, I'm like, I want to get to the point where it's never triggered ever again, because that also, I was missing that sense of freedom. Because if I was afraid of it being triggered, then I didn't feel fully free. And so I never knew when or if it was going to get triggered. And so I was like, I'm determined to be completely free, to not have this fear that I might experience the anxiety at some point. And so as I was working with this mentor, I was explaining these things to her, how I wanted to just keep shifting things internally and to feel more and more free. And so she would guide me like whenever I was experiencing insecurity or fear of rejection as I was promoting my coaching business or getting on the phone with potential clients and stuff like that. She would guide me to connect to the place where I felt it in my body. So this was the first time where I was guided to experience things somatically, which is like how you experience it in your body. So I would be like, "Okay, I feel a tightness in my chest." And so she would be like, "Okay, drop into that space and breathe, create space around it so it's not clenched and tight. Okay, you're expanding that space, you're adding energy to that space." And then through that, it's almost like your body can stop the fight or flight reaction, which is to clench, and it can start to relax and open. And then through that, the emotion that's tied to that feeling in your body can start to come up. And so she would be like, "Okay, just allow yourself to feel, no judgment, no rejecting yourself for feeling that. Just really allow that feeling to expand." And then the tears would come, and I started to experience a process of when you allow those emotions to come, you reach a point where it gets completely shifted. Because it's one thing when you're like feeling sad about something, but you're not tuning into where it is in your body. And so you're feeling sad about something, but you're thinking about it and you're rehearsing the story in your mind. And so then it keeps it stuck in a cycle because there's like a neural connection in your brain that's wiring to feel that way, and you're reinforcing the wiring while you're sad, and it's just it's doesn't there's no way for it to shift. There's no way for the neural connection to like disassemble and create a new neural pathway. But when you tune into your body and you allow yourself to feel open and relaxed, and then allow the emotions to come up and you stay with it, because sometimes like the emotions can get so intense that you feel like you want to just, okay, no, move away, don't think about this, like tighten up again. And but it's so important to just stay in that open, relaxed space, and the emotion processes out, and then you in essence disassemble the neural connection and create a new one, because as you're doing this process of allowing the emotions, you start to reach an aha moment. You realize, oh, I was viewing the situation this way, but actually this is the truth. Or actually, I didn't realize that it's actually this. I was seeing it in this painful way, but it's actually this way. And so in that process, like, these insights are coming to you naturally. And as they're coming to you, it's reflective of a new neural connection forming and the old one disassembling. And so I know this is getting so technical, so I don't know.
No, it's wonderful that you're getting technical because I think that's really important. I want to
Yeah.
just add here, okay,
Yes.
emotions are
Mhm.
meant to flow and go. And I
Yes.
love the fact that you're putting the hardcore technical realities in there. Because
Yes.
when we stop up the emotions, when what you say is put us in a cycle,
Mm.
that is totally messing us up because that's not what emotions are meant to do.
Yeah.
They can be as little as 6 seconds if you just let them occur
You
and
just
let them go.
yes.
But having the understanding of the technical and the
Yeah.
fact that you are building neural pathways, I love that. Please go on. Go on.
Yes, and I love that you said it can take 6 seconds, because it's only when you resist it, when you're tightening up, when you're not really dropping into your body, that it prolongs it and even keeps it stuck. And
Yeah.
but if you it takes some, it's like almost like learning a new like exercising a new muscle. It takes some to learn a new way of being, like, "Oh, when I'm feeling this, I have to learn how to train myself to do this instead of the default, get in my head about it and recycle the emotions." So it takes some training to
Yeah.
exercise the new way of treating yourself when you feel something. But yes, that's really it, is you. And so when you have these aha moments, when you suddenly go from seeing the situation as painful to seeing it as, like, neutral. You neutralize the emotion because you've allowed it to process through. The way I like to describe it is, it's like your body's innate, natural, autocorrect intelligent system. It's the same as if you get bruised or cut. Your body just goes into action, it starts to repair itself. Same with your emotions. If you just learn to not resist it and tighten up and get into the story, into your head, you want to drop out of the story and just drop into your heart space. You want to stop thinking this is what happened, or replaying the memory or the story. Like, you want to just stop thinking and just feel. And it's almost like going back to, if you can imagine, like, how you used to cry as a baby or as a child, like, you're just feeling, you're not thinking, how could they do this? Like, you're dropping all of that and you're just purely feeling. And then, because you're not engaging, the mind can switch to a new thought, a new perspective. Yes. So it happens naturally. You don't have to try to make it happen, as long as you're releasing that resistance, as long as you're fully allowing yourself to feel, as long as you're not judging yourself for what you're feeling, and then you're just present. Just let it flow. Let the emotions cycle, and you'll reach that breakthrough. So that's when I started to experience, like, real breakthroughs. And I would do these sessions with my mentor, and then I would continue that on my own. And then as I would do that, I started developing a methodology or a specific process, because the engineering brain, I'm like, how can I break this down in a way where other people can learn this, because this is so important. People need to know how to do this. And so I would break it down into these steps: release the judgment, release the resistance, drop in, allow. And I also started to explore this space within myself. So there were times where I would tune into the emotion. I was doing all the right things. And you're not trying to make something happen. So you're not trying to be like, okay, I want to feel better now. No, you're just, if you feel sad, feel as sad as long as it takes. But sometimes I would be in that space for a long time, and I'm like, I'm not trying to force anything here, but I'm noticing that nothing's shifting. And then I got this idea to tune into. I was like, okay, let's say I do release this and I do process this, and I start feeling so confident, and I feel like I can be myself, and I feel like this heart open, powerful, super amazing person. I just feel amazing within myself. Do I really want that? do I really feel ready to be that person, to step into that version of me? And I would notice that I would feel this, I don't know, it feels scary. And I was like, oh, I was like, okay, how can I shift these painful emotions if on the other side of shifting it is me becoming that version of me? And if I don't feel ready to become that version of me, then I'm just gonna, this is when it gets stuck. So I was just like, okay, so I was like, so if I'm not ready to be this version of me, then how much longer am I willing to keep feeling these insecurities, keep feeling these feelings of rejection? I've been struggling with this for such a long time. Am I fine with feeling it for another year or two? And I'm just like, no, like I'm so ready to be done with this. Done. And then I would tune back into the version of me that feels powerful and confident, and I would feel ready for that. I was like, "Yes, we're ready for that now." And then the emotions would shift, and then when you're done with the process, when you have those new thoughts, those aha moments, like those new perspectives start to come in, and you finish out, it's like a session with yourself, and you finish out the session feeling amazing. That's when you know you've reached the other side. And so that's the process I developed, and yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's amazing. And the fact is, you had to be an engineer first to get to a
Yes.
place where you could develop this process.
This
And I think very often I know I've been on a healing journey as well, and people that I know, we want to just basically throw the baby out with the bathwater. Okay, oh, that's all done. Just forget that. But that's not what we're meant to do. It's
mhm,
not about forgetting where we came from or forgetting the pieces. It's keeping the golden nuggets from all of that that can
mhm.
serve us in this new version of us.
Yes. Yeah.
So you need that. I don't know what they call those wagons that used to come out of the gold mines, but you need one of those to bring all your golden nuggets with you into
Yeah.
the new version of you. Keep a virtual mine cart handy.
Yes. Yeah, and it's what I wanna add on to that is for people watching this show, this podcast, they might be feeling like, why did this happen to me? Like, why am I experiencing this? This isn't fair. Because I very much remember the mindset of being in that place. But it's first of all, to get out of there, it requires a sense of knowing that there's a way out and being determined to reach that point of having that breakthrough, of feeling yourself again, feeling like you can be yourself, feeling free, feeling alive, feeling just fulfillment in your life. Like, you have to realize that everything starts in the mind and that you can develop a determination to get there. And then once you develop that determination, it's about finding the right tools, like the tools I explained, very effective, very powerful. And like I said at first, it's like building a new muscle. So it can be helpful to have someone guide you so that you're not defaulting to like being in the head or tightening in your body, like someone to guide you at least in the beginning on how to do this yourself. And then as you get the hang of it, it's just allowing all the stuff you've shut away that you haven't allowed yourself to feel, the stuff you haven't allowed yourself to process, to come to terms with. And all of this happens when you're in this meditative space, allowing these emotions to flow. And so as you do that, you start to become more and more yourself, more and more free from the weight, the heavy emotional weight of what you've been carrying. You start to see life in a new way. You start to see a fresh new perspective about the way you used to see things. And through that, you start to feel more and more alive. You start to see more and more hope and light, and you start to experience more joy in your life. And that's your path of transformation. That's the path of getting to the other side of this. And then you look back and see everything you went through, and you realize it was all gold. It could feel horrible now, but looking back, wow, look how much I grew as a result of this. Look how much I rewired from how I used to see things. Look at this amazing testimonial story of how it can be possible to just become a new person and to forgive your past and heal things from your past and look at all these skills I've developed from doing the work on myself, and it's just amazing, and there's no part in that where you feel resentful about your past because it's turned into a gift. Yeah.
Yeah, it's when you take the lessons and those golden nuggets.
Yeah.
It's true. It's absolutely true. I ask anybody that's gone on a really fruitful healing journey, ask them if what would they take out of their life or what would they do differently? Nothing, because then you wouldn't be this version of you.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that in itself, I think, is a really important lesson, is to it's not even being positive, but it's being understanding
Mm,
of yourself or yourselves, because each of piece of you, when you heal, you become a different you at each and
mhm,
every part on that journey. And I
yeah,
think it's, to me, I see things as very integrated often, and I find things are better, so more healed, things just in general, when you integrate all the pieces of yourself, or when you integrate all the pieces of your business, it works better. When, as an entrepreneur, you have to be sure that even your mindset is included in what you're doing, and that's a big part of it as well. But
mhm,
all of that to say, you have so many modalities, you have integrated all of these pieces
mhm,
that go into this process you've developed, which
yeah,
is phenomenal.
mhm,
Because there's an awful lot of us. I know people will go to a somatic specialist, or they'll go to someone who deals with past lives or karma or akashic records. And
mhm,
there's all these different pieces, but there are some people like us who just give me the whole thing. I just want the whole thing. No, it's not feed me a piece at a time. No, no, I
mm,
want the whole thing. I want to know that I can go from here to there and just
yes.
do it.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's incredible. It is incredible.
Yeah.
And what a gift you are to your clients.
Thank you. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. I definitely want the whole world to know this. I feel like not enough people know about this. And so,
Yes.
because it is so common to be stuck in the healing trap, and there's so many healing modalities that they have you treating yourself as a problem to be solved. And so you do feel the energy shifts. You're just like, "Okay, wow, like I do feel more energized," but like you're not the core problem is it keeps getting reinstated because of the way you're viewing it. And I think more people need to know it's all in how you choose to view yourself because your mindset creates your reality. Yeah.
I also think a part of that, you're talking about this healing trap. It's healthier, but it's still an addiction.
It
When
is.
when
It is.
yeah, when you're trying to cure problems, if you look at yourself as a problem, it's like I'm always telling people, don't say you need something. Need is a perpetual state.
Mm.
If you need money or you need to feel better, you will need that forever, because
Yes.
it's self-fulfilling. It seems like such a picky semantic thing, but if you really think about it, and we apply that to your healing, and addictions can be good things as well, but anything in excess
Mm.
is not ideal, I guess it's the word I want to use.
Mhm. Yes. 100%.
So what's your plan in next 5 years?
I love that question because I feel like I'm way on my way. My plan is to get this out there to as many people as possible. Yes, like I stopped defining myself as a coach because I felt like all of my effort was going into figuring out how to sell people into my programs. And I feel like my expertise and my gifts and my wisdom are meant to reach as many people as possible, whether or not they join my programs. And I define myself now as a spiritual thought leader. And now I'm going on platforms like podcasts, speaking on stages, speaking on summits, and developing my content creation on Instagram and Facebook, and just trying to get my wisdom and my perspectives that have helped me so much and so many of my clients, trying to get that out there to as many people as possible. In 5 years, I see myself, I've built a pretty big audience and they're learning from this wisdom that I have to share, and it's just growing exponentially. So I definitely want to reach as many people as possible.
I love that. And you're teaching people to help themselves.
Yes.
That is so incredibly important because there are those of us who believe exactly what you believe. Also in business,
Mm.
in my day-to-day job, I never wanted to teach people to be me. I wanted to teach them to use the tools I used to be the
Yes.
best them.
Yes.
I find it odd when people go to therapists for 10 or 20 years, or people go to even the same mentor for 10 or 20 years. If you're not progressing, then you need to change it up.
Yeah. I had in the very first time I ran, I have this program called Power and Liberation Through Triggers, and it's where I teach this modality step by step for people to be able to implement and do it on themselves. And the very first time I ran it, there was a woman who had been in therapy for 30 years. And at the end, I asked them to share some testimonials and experiences because it was the first time I ran the program. Would love some feedback. And I reached breakthroughs in this program that I haven't reached in 30 years of being in therapy. I'm like, people need to know this. They need to know
Yes,
how to do this. Yeah.
but it's almost okay. We look to mentors, we look to therapists, we look to business coaches and what have you, but we don't give ourselves permission to grow past them
Mm,
and take ourselves to a place where we are our best teacher.
mhm.
And on that note, I know that you have something for our audience. Why don't you give
Yes.
them an idea and we will talk about the freebie that you're offering?
Yes. Okay. Speaking about the process that I explained of dropping into your heart center when you're experiencing a trigger, an emotion, a feeling, and you want to learn how to reach that shift, how to process the emotion, like I explained earlier. So I created a meditation. It's called the Unconditional Love Meditation. It's about opening your heart to unconditional love. Because the big key in reaching these breakthroughs and processing these emotions and experiences is allowing your heart space to open. That's a big part of it because that's what allows you to feel open and your body feels relaxed, and then you can process the emotions. So the meditation, it guides you to dropping into your heart center, creating space in your heart center. And then it has like a dedicated time for you to process and reach these shifts within yourself. So that's a really great starting point. Also, with my energy healing background, I infused it with energy healing. And if you are spiritually minded, I also called in source of all that is, God, creator of all that is, and different angels and light beings who can come and support and facilitate your healing process. So there's all of that infused within. I just put the intention, and whenever you play the meditation, have a quiet space to really allow yourself to drop in. You can be laying down, sitting up, and yeah, just enjoy it.
Ah, that is wonderful. The address to get that meditation is just down below us, but we will also put it below the transcripts under the podcast as well, so that you can be sure and grab it for yourselves. And
Mhm.
don't forget, you can always let us know what happens for you. I think
Yes.
it's absolutely wonderful what you do,
Thank you.
Michal. I cannot thank you enough for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I
This
really
has
appreciate it.
has been really wonderful. I think it's
Mm,
been a really useful discussion, and there are so many nuggets in here for you, the audience, to take away. I
mhm.
hope you find exactly what you need. Thank
Mm.
you. This has been Michall J. Medina. I'm Elaine Lindsay. This is Suicide Zen Forgiveness. And as always, make the very best of your today, every day. And we're going to see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for being here for another inspiring episode of Suicide Zen Forgiveness. We appreciate you tuning in. Please subscribe and download on your favorite service and check out SZF's YouTube channel or Facebook community. If you have the chance to leave a 5-star rating or review, it'd be greatly appreciated. Please refer this to a friend you know who may benefit from the hope and inspiration from our guests. Suicide Zen Forgiveness was brought to you by the following sponsors: Truel Social Media, the digital integration specialists. Let them get you rocking page 1 in the search results. Canada's keynote humorist Judy Croon, motivational speaker, comedian, author, and stand-up coach at Second City. Judy has been involved for over a decade in the City Street Outreach Program in Toronto. Do you have a story to share? Do you know someone you think would be a great guest? Please go to szf42.com. And for our American listeners, that's szf42.com. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you again.